Welcome to the fourth session of our Discover Acumatica with 247 Digitized webinar series. This session titled Exploring Budgets, Allocation and Sub-Accounts in Acumatica with 247 Digitized promises to be an insightful exploration of these crucial aspects of Acumatica, brought to you by the experts at 247 Digitize. Before we dive into our agenda, a quick word about 247 Digitize. We are a dedicated team of Acumatica experts committed to helping businesses harness the full potential of this powerful ERP solution. Our goal is to equip you with the knowledge and tools you need to drive efficiency, streamline operations, and maximize your return of investment. I am Mazhar, Director of Business Development at 247 Digitize. And on the organizing team today, I have Archana and Sam with me. Archana is the Head of Bookkeeping Services at 247 Digitize. Archana comes with over 18 years of experience in handling finance and accounts across industries like construction, education, alcobev, and automobiles. She is a CPA from CPA Australia and a chartered accountant from ICA India. Sam, who is the Head of Marketing at 247 Digitize, is the technical expert behind this webinar. Thank you, Sam. Today, we will discuss the following areas: sub-accounts, budgets, allocation, and last but not the least, the Q&A session. Over to you, Archana.
Thanks, Mazhar. Good afternoon, everybody, and I hope all of you are doing well. It is that time of the year where we're drawing a close to those who are following the calendar accounting year, where we look at the year gone by and would like to forecast what we think the numbers should be for the next year. This is the whole reason why we thought we will do this webinar on sub-accounts, budgets, and allocations. We hope this webinar will prove useful in this exercise. We will first look at sub-accounts today. A sub-account is a segregated account nested under a large account and is often used to help to track expenses when several activities are funded by the same account. In Acumatica ERP, you can use sub-accounts in addition to accounts to record your financial data. Sub-accounts are used to virtually split accounts into smaller, more specific accounts to achieve finer classification for reporting and internal management purposes. Next, we will look at sub-account identifiers. In Acumatica ERP, we can define sub-accounts using the segmented keys, which determines the structure of the sub-account identifiers, and you can access and edit this on the segmented keys form. But keep in mind, after sub-accounts have been fully configured and transactions have been posted in your system, there are limitations to the changes you can make to sub-accounts. However, if you're not planning to use a sub-account anymore, you can deactivate it on the sub-account form. A sub-account can be deleted only if it has no transactions posted. You can merge sub-accounts by moving the balances to one of these sub-accounts and deactivating the unnecessary sub-accounts on the sub-accounts form. Moving on to segment keys. Segment keys can be modified so that the structure of the sub-account identifiers meets the company's business needs. In the lookup mode box, the validation of the sub-accounts during data entry is controlled by the entry and lookup mode selected in the lookup mode box of the segmented keys form for the sub-account segmented key. To give users the ability to select a sub-account on a data entry form only from the list of defined sub-accounts in the system, you can select the by segmented key mode from the drop-down. To give users the ability to enter sub-accounts on a data entry form by selecting the values segment by segment, you can select the by segment all available segment values mode. When a user enters a new sub-account on any data entry form, the system automatically adds it to the list of subaccounts on the subaccount form. In the numbering ID, we can give the start and end number for the subaccount. In the length box, we can specify the length of the segment key value of the subaccount. On the edit mask area, we can specify the format of the segment value. A segment value can be numeric, alphabetical, or alphanumeric. In the validate checkbox, we can validate the segment values of subaccounts by checking this on the table. When this option is checked, we can select values only from the available segmented values form. If this validation is turned off, a user can enter a new segment directly on a data entry form or the subaccounts form. Again, to remind you, after subaccounts have been fully configured and transactions have been posted in your system, there are limitations to the changes you can make to subaccounts. We can add a new segment to the end of subaccount identifiers as well on the segmented keys form. We will now look at segment values. Add rows with the set of values which represent the group of items to which the applicable item belongs, that is, the segment keys of the subaccount. As mentioned before, the length limit of segment 3 for the segment key of the subaccount was defined. Therefore, you can only assign values with 3 characters to the segment as is displayed on your screen. For example, if we are going to say that a department has to have 5 subaccounts, you can split the subaccounts into divisions like finance, marketing, operations, sales, and corporate. If you want to divide the subaccounts based on products, you can, for example, divide it based on non-stock items, electronics, juicers, etc., depending on the nature of your business. If subaccounts are used in your system, you can enter and process GL batches in which journal entries to one account are split to multiple subaccounts. We can track the expense account in detail by going to the account by subaccount on the inquiries form as it is split into subaccounts. With the combined subaccount functionality provided by Acumatica ERP, we can also define masks the system uses to form a combined subaccount from multiple subaccounts to track costs more specifically. If we have configured the combined subaccount functionality, the system will insert a particular subaccount that is a combination of the involved subaccounts that we have specified during the configuration. We also specify masks that the system uses to compose new subaccount identifiers by using the segment values of each of the specified subaccounts. We will now look at budgets. To put it simply, a budget is a spending plan based on income and expenses. It is also a plan of financial operations which encompasses an estimate of proposed expenditures for a given period or purpose and the proposed means of financing them. We can create a budget ledger if we want to prepare a budget in Acumatica. We can also use the budget ledger as a base ledger for calculating allocation proportions. We can look at creation of simple budgets. In the next slide, you add budget articles on the budget form by using one of the following methods or a combination of the following methods. You can enter the account subaccount pairs manually, add a row on the toolbar, select an account in the account column and a subaccount and type the annual amount in the amount column for each budget article. You can then distribute the amount over the accounting periods. You can also import the list of budget articles from an Excel spreadsheet. To do this, you click Load Records from File on the table toolbar and upload the file. You can load the account subaccount pairs with their amounts from an actual ledger or from another budget ledger. To do this, you click Preload Articles and select the source settings and specify the source ledger, the financial year, and the accounts and subaccounts can be uploaded. You can also specify a multiplier to calculate the budget amounts based on the amounts available in the source ledger. We will now look at distribution of amounts over financial periods. On the budgets form, for the budget article to be released, the amount of the article must always be equal to the distributed amount. You can distribute the amounts for each period in one of the following ways. To distribute the amounts manually, you specify the necessary amounts for each period in the column corresponding to the period. To distribute the amounts automatically, click Distribute and select the distribution method box to define how the amounts should be distributed. Option 1 is to distribute it evenly, which would result in an even distribution of the annual amount over the financial period. Option 2, to proportionally allocate the amounts of the previous year basis the previous year's period. You can select the proportionally to the previous year option. Option 3, proportionally to compared values. This will help you to distribute the annual amount over the financial period proportionally to the amount selected for comparison. To facilitate the distribution of the amounts, you can also select whether you want to distribute each amount only for the selected article or for all articles in the same node. Also, you can select a node and distribute the amounts for all subarticles of this node. We will now look at simple budgets and its related report. You can view the list of budget articles that have been created for a particular branch or company for a specific year on the GL budget edit form. The report shows the current amount and the distributed amount of each budget article and their released amounts if an article has been released. In Acumatica, you can also create new budgets based on budgets that have already been created in the system and compare the budgets. You can modify the settings of a simple budget on the budgets form by preloading a budget that has already been created in the system and specifying the needed branch, ledger, financial year, and multiplier for a new budget. You can then release the updated budget articles on the release budgets form. To compare budgets, in the Compare to Ledger and Compare to Year boxes, we select the ledger and the financial year of the budget needed for comparison in the budgets form. The system adds a row to each budget article being prepared that shows the amounts of the budget of the compared ledger and financial year. We will now look at the hierarchical budget tree. In Acumatica ERP, you can define a budget structure that will be used by all companies and branches. To do so, you configure a budget tree in which budget articles are divided into groups that are represented as nodes and leaves in the system. You define nodes on the subarticles pane of the budget configuration form, as you can see on your screen. The account and sub-account masks specified for the node in the account mask and the sub-account mask columns define the articles that can be added to this node. When you create a budget, we can preload articles to this node based on the mask so that you do not have to define a leaf for every single article in the budget tree. You can further populate nodes with other nodes or define leaf articles for each node. Leaf budget articles. You add a leaf, which is an account sub-account pair, to the budget tree on the sub-articles pane of the budget configuration form. You can do this in one of the following ways. To add a range of similar accounts and sub-accounts, you click Preload Accounts of the sub-articles pane and specify the settings. The system generates all possible account and sub-account pairs. To enter each account sub-account pair manually on the subarticles pane, you can click Add a row on the table toolbar and specify an account sub-account pair. We will now move on and look at how to convert a simple budget into a hierarchical budget. Next slide, Sam. Thank you. With Acumatica ERP, if your company needs hierarchical budgets, we can either configure a tree and create a budget based on the tree, or we can convert an existing single level budget into an hierarchical budget. If you have created a single level budget before you configured the budget tree, you can convert each single level budget to a hierarchical budget based on the budget tree that has been configured on the budget configuration form. To convert a single level budget to a hierarchical budget, on the budget form, we select an existing single level budget and click Manage Budgets and select the Convert Budget using Current Budget Configuration action. The system now converts the single level budget by using the budget tree from the budget configuration form. Modifying a hierarchical budget. In the next slide, we will see that in Acumatica ERP, you can create a hierarchical budget, that is, a budget that has multiple levels. For each level, the budget can be reviewed and analyzed. In this activity, you will add the expenses leaf to the node of the hierarchical budget on the budget configuration form. On the budgets form, you will convert the 2023 budget based on the updated budget tree and update the expenses article. You will then release the modified budget article on the release budgets form. Finally, on the budgets form, you will upload a budget for 2024 from an Excel file. You can view the list of budget articles that have been created for a particular branch or company for a specific year on the GL budget edit form. The report shows the current amount and the distributed amount of each budget article and their released amounts if an article has been released. We will now look at preparing and running a budget versus an actual ARM report. Analytical reports are a specific type of reports that you can construct in Acumatica by using the Analytical Report Manager toolkit. Reports that are constructed with this toolkit are called ARM reports to distinguish them from the reports created in the Acumatica Report Designer. The Analytical Report Manager toolkit is specifically designed for the creation of financial reports that retrieve the amounts posted to particular general ledger accounts and sub-accounts. The structure of the ARM report is as follows. The row set, an entity that defines the rows to be included in the report and the data to be displayed in each row. The column set is an entity that defines the report title, the column headers, and the columns to be included in the report. The report definition is an entity that defines the report structure, links together the row set and the column set of a report, and defines the report parameters. By using the report definition, you can easily add the report to the needed workspace. Revising a budget. In the next slide, we will see that we can change the prepared budget at any time on the budgets form. We can change the total amount of the budget articles and the distribution of article amounts for individual periods. After we have modified a budget article, we have to release the article to view its amount on reports. If we have made corrections that we want to undo, we can restore the budget to the released version. To do so, click Manage Budget and select the Rollback to Released Values option in the Select Action box. All budget articles will be rolled back to the last released values. All changes made after that will be lost. In the final part of this webinar, we will now move on and look at allocations. Allocations are also referred to as cost allocations, which split costs between different activities, products, or departments within a company. In Acumatica, you can create and maintain allocation rules, which basically define how allocations are to be performed and perform allocations automatically based on your definitions. Allocation periods. We can define the post period for an allocation rule by specifying the period in the start period and end period boxes on the allocations form. The allocation rule is applied to each period of the range defined by the start and end period. You can leave the end period box blank if you're not planning to stop using the rule. Ledgers for performing allocations. On the allocation tab of the allocations form, we have to specify at least the following ledgers. To specify the ledger to which journal entries generated for the allocations are to be posted, you have to select this ledger in the allocation ledger box. To specify the ledger that is used to calculate the amount to be allocated, you select this ledger in the source ledger box. Allocation methods. In the allocation method box of the allocations form, you can select the method that defines how the allocation amount should be collected from the source accounts as follows. If you want the period to date amount to be distributed during the allocation process, select by account PTD. To distribute the source amount proportionally to period to date balances, you can select by destination account PTD. Allocation rules, distribution methods. There are two distribution methods to allocate in Acumatica. One is the method that is based on a fixed distribution ratio. To distribute the source amount by percentages, you select by percent. You then specify the percent that is distributed to each account, sub-account pair. To distribute the source amount by user-defined coefficients, you select by weight. You then have to specify the ratio that is distributed to each account, sub-account pair. The second method is based on a dynamic distribution ratio. To distribute the source amount proportionally to a year-to-date balance, you can select by destination account YTD. To distribute the source amount proportionally to a period-to-date balance, you can then select by destination account PTD. To distribute the allocation amount proportionally to the balances of accounts and sub-accounts in a ledger that differs from the selected allocation ledger, you specify the ledger in the base ledger box on the allocation tab. Next slide, Sam. Thank you. To distribute the allocation amount proportionally to the account balances in the ledger that is specified in the allocation ledger box, the base ledger box should be left empty. Source accounts and sub-accounts. In the next slide, we will see that we can specify the source accounts and sub-accounts of an allocation rule on the source account tab of the form. We can select the source account by specifying each account and sub-account individually or by specifying a group of accounts or sub-accounts. Contra accounts and sub-accounts. If you want the system to deduct allocation amounts from accounts and sub-accounts that differ from the source accounts and sub-accounts, you specify contra accounts and sub-accounts for each account and sub-account in the source accounts tab of the allocations form. The source account and sub-accounts will then be used to determine the total allocation amount, but the amount to be distributed will be copied from the contra and the sub-accounts. We will now look at the limits for allocation amounts. If the source accounts are specified explicitly, the individual maximum limit amount or a percentage of it can be specified for each source account. If an amount limit is specified, the account balance will be allocated completely unless it exceeds the limit. If the account balance exceeds the limit, only the amount that is specified in the limit will be allocated. Destination accounts and sub-accounts. In this slide, we will see that on the destination account tab of the allocations form, you specify the destination account and sub-accounts to which the allocation amount will be distributed. In addition to specifying the destination accounts and sub-accounts for the distribution methods that use a dynamic ratio, you can specify the base accounts and sub-accounts to be used to calculate a proportion for distributing the allocation amount among the destination accounts. If the allocate source accounts separately checkbox is selected on the allocations tab of the allocations form, you can leave the sub-accounts and accounts empty on the Destination Accounts tab. In this case, the generated transactions, the system will use the accounts and sub-accounts specified on the Source Accounts tab. We will now look at the allocations rule in the multi-level allocations. An allocation can be a part of a multi-level allocation with the same accounts and sub-accounts involved in different allocations as source and destination accounts and sub-accounts. In Acumatica, multi-level allocations can be performed as a sequence of allocations with a fixed order. To define the multi-level allocation settings, you can assign the appropriate order value to each allocation in the sort order box on the allocation tab of the allocations form. The allocation with the lowest value is applied first. So a 1 indicates first priority, 2 indicates second priority, and so on. Running of allocations. After you have created all the necessary allocation rules on the allocations form, you run allocations on the run allocations form, and you can process multiple allocations at once. You need to run allocations as part of the period closing procedure when all transactions for the period have been posted to the general ledger. To run allocations, you specify the date of allocation in the allocation date box. The system automatically inserts the period related to the date of allocation in the post period box. When you run an allocation rule, the system generates an allocation batch that deducts the amount from one account sub-account pair and then posts the distributed amounts to other account sub-account pairs according to the allocation rule. Running of allocations and its related forms. You can view the generated batches for a particular allocation in the following ways. To view the most recent batches that have been generated for active allocations in a particular period, you use the Run Allocations form. On this form, you select a period in the post period box, and then the system displays the reference numbers of the last generated batches for active allocations. To view the list of batches that have been generated for a particular allocation, you use the Allocation History tab of the Allocations form. On this tab, you can find information on the ledgers to which the transactions are posted, the dates of the transactions, the post periods, the statuses, and the total amount of batches. We have covered here on this webinar a few key points with regard to budgets, allocations, and sub-accounts. I hope all those of you who have participated have found these points useful, and wishing all of you a great holiday season ahead until we meet in the next webinar. Thank you, Sam, and back to you, Mazhar.
Thank you, Archana. Great session, great insights, and very well explained. As this session is about to end, we look forward to addressing your questions and engaging in meaningful discussions. We will try and answer all your questions here, and if time does not permit, then we will get back to you with the answers. What I request is please share your questions in the chat box now, and then we can discuss it through. I encourage everyone to please ask the questions. Whether you are an industry expert or a business owner or simply curious about this topic, please ask some questions so that we can take you through and explain as much as possible. Sam, do we have any questions?
Not right now. Let's give people who are in the webinar a couple minutes maybe. Or if not, what we can do is we can also ask people to please leave your questions in the comment section, and we can get back to you with response to whatever query you have.
Absolutely.
Well, okay. As I mentioned before, this webinar will be available on on our LinkedIn site and also on our YouTube channel. We're going to be sharing that link with people on our social media. And please, whenever you see this video, just post the questions, and we will get back to you. Sorry, as soon as we can. Um, but for now, I think we can just mention people how they can get in contact with us, Mauser.
Sure. If you're interested or your clients are interested in learning more, please do get in touch with me. You may make a note or take a screenshot of my contact details. Let's discuss how we can streamline your bookkeeping processes. Looking forward to connect soon. Thank you all for being a part of today's webinar. We look forward to see you at the next one, which is on December 20th, where we will discuss reclassification, filters, and preferences. Stay tuned to our LinkedIn page for more updates. We appreciate your participation. If you have any further questions or feedback, as we said, please reach out in the comments of this webinar. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks, everyone.